How would you define and explain what a succession plan is and what's the purpose of it and the benefits of doing it and why the earlier the better? Let's take a broad view and explain exactly what that entails to any listeners out there who think succession planning is just, hey, I'm giving the company over to my next generation.
We had a call earlier this week, very similar to this. It was husband and wife. They are second generation, third generation. They have 5 sons. Their mind is succession planning is they're giving up, whether they're giving up their life, whether they're giving up their control, whether they're giving up their wealth. I'm not sure, but a lot of misconceptions are out there with owners of businesses what succession planning is. And it gets confusing based upon who they're talking to about succession planning. If they're talking to their wealth advisor, it's usually around their wealth and estate plan. If they're talking to their attorney or CPA, it's going to be more around the governance, decision making, and shareholder agreements. What we try to do is we try to separate the conversations around leadership succession, distinctively different from ownership succession, which is then again distinctively different from wealth succession. And we find that once we separate those conversations, have them independently, the owners get a little more settled in and they become more open to considering different paths and ideas. Once we complete those three discussions, we certainly have to bring them back together. And we do wind those together to make sure they're synergistic and that they're going to work. Succession planning is confusing. I think it's so far in the future that it's not a priority. Maybe managing customer revenues are a priority or managing cash flows are a priority, but thinking about succession planning 10 or 15 years down, that's not a priority. And then lastly, they don't understand that succession planning is a process. It's not an event. It's not a one and done deal. This is something that you start and you never finish, quite honestly, particularly if you're going to be one of these businesses that will continue on from one generation to the next. The succession planning process will continue from generation to generation. So it's an ongoing conversation with a list of decisions that have to get made depending upon where the business is and where the family is in their cycle.
How would the family get ready and prepare for a succession plan and developing actual steps?
We lay it out into three different phases. And the first phase is to have you understand, as well as for us, since we can help you, to understand the layout of the business, to make sure everyone's in alignment so that you all understand whose roles are what and how you're going to align yourselves together. That's the first step. If you're not in alignment, it's very difficult to move forward through the other steps of the program. The way that we work with you at Ferguson Alliance is we do it in a workshop environment. If we were to walk in and say, oh, here's your succession plan, it doesn't work. It needs to be yours. You need to own it. You need to build it. It needs to be something that you've put together. And it takes about 3 to 4 months, sometimes longer, depending upon your company, your workload, things of that sort. We start out with that alignment to make sure that everybody's on the same page and that you're ready for the transition when it does occur. That's our first workshop. The second workshop is to make sure that everybody understands what the dynamics are going to be of the change and get your team ready with that change and to make sure that they're prepared for a successful transition. That's really the work that's done for phase one. Phase two is to go in and say, let's define who we want to be. What's our future? How do we want to create a vision for the business? Make sure that our leadership and ownership is on the same page for the succession. We want to identify during that phase who are the potential successors. In addition to that, you want to know how you're going to distribute. Are you going to have someone buy you out? Are you just going to have it be like a family first business and you're just going to pass on the leadership? So you need to make those plans. You need to know how that's going to work before you move further into your succession plan. Then you need to move into governance. You need to know who's going to help you along the way, such as a family council, advisory boards. Do you have a board in place? Do you have all of the tools that you need in order to have the accountability that you're going to have. And when you're looking at these cross-generational functions, to know who's going to make what decisions, how that's going to work for the company. And so as you're making these transitions, you need to have those things in place so that you're not shooting from the hip, if you will. That family governance is a very important part of what you're going to do as far as your succession plan.
What makes it more of a living document that goes from one generation to the next? Is it minor tweaks or is it more overhaul?
Well, that's a good question. Depends on the situation. The first step is just get it in writing. Get a succession plan in writing. When we work with clients, we have a pretty extensive template. And by the time we finish with them on their first succession planning process, it's not 100% complete. It might be 50 to maybe at best 80% complete. There's still blanks that need to be filled in. And so that gives them their task list of what they need to be working on, whether it's with tax advisors or estate planners, or maybe it's operational areas of work that they have to look into. Could be leadership succession that are non-family members. But they work that plan, and we ask them to review that at least once a year. And they should do that on a regular, ongoing basis, probably at a shareholder meeting, potentially at a board meeting. It needs to get institutionalized, and they need to put that into the rhythm of their business.
When a family does realize that they need a succession plan, what are they often surprised to learn it includes?
Well, they're surprised to learn, I think, that it includes a governance document. It includes some addressing of what's your mission statement, what's your vision statement. They think, oh, that doesn't have anything to do with succession, but it really does. It's a critical part of it. Everybody who's going to be involved in the succession from the current owner needs to have a full understanding of all of those things. I don't think they realize what amount of work needs to go into a succession plan. They think, oh, we're going to have a meeting, and when we get finished with the meeting, we're going to have our plan. And it just doesn't work that way. It needs to be well thought out, well designed, well understood, and agreed to. And I think they're very often surprised to learn all of that. All of those mechanics need to go into this.